an honest conversation about marriage and divorce. What's up, Bravehearts community? This is Sean Heineman here with another segment of It's Scary to Remarry, wanting you to love fearlessly. This topic, of course, is dear to my heart because I'm big on marriage and relationships. And I've been married and I've been through a divorce. And I want to help someone out there who has maybe they're struggling with a divorce, or maybe you plan on marrying. So I made this video for those in particular. So let's talk about marriage first. Let's have this honest conversation. First of all, very practical things. So I'm sure that you can apply this stuff to your life. And even if you need to take down notes, make sure you take these notes because I believe that these this is evergreen, right? So let's talk about it. A healthy marriage takes work. You have to be intentional and keep the spice and fun alive. A lot of the old school heads used to tell us back in the day, whatever you did to get them is what you got to do to keep them. So true, timeless. I do believe that. If you were used to buying her flowers, or you were used to buying her outfits, or y'all were taking trips and doing a bunch of different things, you have to make sure that you continually do that. Now, don't get me wrong, life gets in the way. Totally understand. You have kids, bills, responsibilities. I get it. But that's when you really have to be that much more creative and making sure that you are investing in your marriage, because without it, putting the marriage on autopilot is something that can really destroy a marriage. And I spoke about that before, about putting your marriage on autopilot. If you're not intentional, it will die. That's just the way it is. I think a lot of times we believe that we can put work into our education, we can put work into our jobs. Like, we're very intentional about those things. We're very intentional about our kids. But when it comes to our marriage, we just kind of like, we married now. After the first couple of years, you excited, and then it dies down and you just put it on autopilot. But I'm here to say that if you are being intentional every day, I do believe that you can have a healthy marriage. So remember, it takes work, but the payoff is great. So all I want to let all of you know is put in the necessary work that it takes to keep him or her. Think about this, even from a sexual perspective, right? If you were having crazy sex before y'all got married, make sure y'all have crazy sex after you married, right? Because that was something that maybe kept his attention when y'all were dating. So you have to keep that kind of energy. I understand there will be off days, but please be intentional about that. Number two, about marriage, there will be tough times. There will be disagreements, and then how do you handle them? And it's very important to marry someone that's emotionally intelligent. Being emotionally intelligent is when you have differences in your marriage, because you're not going to agree on everything, right? You got two different people that's coming from two different uh, lifestyles, or they had a whole life before they met you, right? And the way they were raised, their birthing order, all these different things that comes into play, their experiences, you bringing them under one household to make that work. So someone who is emotionally intelligent is someone who actually hears what you have to say when it comes to you and your spouse having a difference. Because when both of you are just hollering at each other, it doesn't help anything. All you're doing is just arguing. It's going to make things worse. So it's best that you have someone who can understand, take yourself out the equation, and listen to what they have to say, because this is going to give you the necessary insight that you need to really hear what they're saying. Because sometimes when they're talking, you interpret it as something different. So by the time y'all calm down, you're like, I thought you said this, or I thought you said that. They're like, no, I said this. So make sure you follow up. Even if you say, I hear you say, and you fill in a blank, right? So that way y'all both are hearing what's being said. So you say what they're saying to you, and you repeat it to them. So then that way y'all can have a better understanding, opposed to your mind being on autopilot and you're thinking, you're interpreting it a different way. That's one of the quickest ways that you can destroy your communication. one big takeaway from marriage, I will say this, is if you have someone who's really good in communication, that's really key in helping your marriage thrive. Someone who's really good in communication, who takes themselves out the equation, hear what they say, and then validate that person. When you can do that, when they feel heard, then when it's your time to be heard, like you have to show that person what it's like to extend grace to them. You have to be the example. So if you're being the example, when it's your turn to get some grace, they know how to mimic that. They're like, okay, they've done that to me, so I need to do that to them. The problem is a lot of people don't know how to extend that grace. They don't know how to show that love. They don't know how to take the higher road. And so they're not setting that example for that person. So they always feel like they're under the gun because you're not being that example. Whoever you marry has the power to break you down or to build you up, and the choice is yours. So it depends on who you say yes to. I think this is very important when it comes to marriage because uh, this person has so much influence on your life, and you can talk to anyone who's been through a divorce that this person has taken you for a ride. Like they have damaged you, they have scarred you, and that's not saying that you can't recover, but it's the memories that comes with it, whether good or bad. Some people who are even widowed, their spouse was so awesome. Check this out, that they didn't even want to remarry. You know, you think of say of a Coretta Scott King, right? Or Betty Shabazz. I'm just using these people as an example. I don't believe they ever remarried because they marry such awesome men that like who can really fill those shoes. So that's how much power that person have in your life, whoever you decide to marry. So I would say be very intentional about the person that you decide to marry. Now let's talk about divorce. I'll probably be the first person to say this because I know a lot of times we celebrate divorce and I get it. We'll talk about that later. But divorce hurts like hell. It's like this tearing apart of something that you became accustomed to, something that you have become used to. And now you're just left with pieces. Especially if it ended on a bad note, you're just left with these pieces, and you're like, "What do I do with these pieces that's been left over?" You know, and that's when you have to realize that I need to get the necessary therapy. There were some issues that I had because a lot of people don't address this. They don't address the issues that they brought into the marriage. It's always the other person's fault. So I would say tread lightly if you decide to get back out in the dating field. To if this person is always talking about their ex in a negative way, you probably want to avoid them because there's nothing more attractive than personal accountability. People who have personal accountability, they have a tendency to recover faster, if you will. So, you know, there's times I remember going through my divorce and signing the papers, like actually knowing that this was final. It was like, wow, I never intended to divorce. You know, you take your vows and till death do us part and all this other stuff, but you never see yourself signing these papers. But that's real life. Like it happens. So you have to get to a place in your life where if you are going through a divorce, knowing that on the other side, it will get better. I will say that. Don't give up on your life. Don't give up on hope for the future because it can be dark when you're going through a divorce, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. Um, then I want to ask this question. How do you recover after knowing that it's no longer us, but just you? You know, I remember going through my divorce. I was like, wow, this is no longer us, but just me. So how do I build my life back up again to going from divorce to being single? Like, what does that look like? And it can be challenging at times, even getting back out in the dating field. And I'm grateful that I was able to remarry, you know, met my wife on Instagram. We remarried 6 months later. She was just a phenomenal woman, but there was a certain amount of trepidation that came with me dating again because I was married for 14 years and I'm thinking, I don't know what this dating scene looked like, you know. So yeah, it does present its challenges. And I'm grateful that I didn't have to go through a lot of different relationships in order to find the right one. But Yeah, that's something to consider, that when it's no longer us, but now it's just you. And how do you navigate that in your personal life? And I will say sometimes divorce will be liberating. I will say that because sometimes you could have been in an abusive marriage. This person could have totally drained your finances, or beat you down mentally because they didn't have self-esteem. And I have a video on how do you know if someone have low self-esteem. I want to make sure that I have that linked up so you can see that video as well, so you can see that before it even comes. Uh, are there kids involved? This can be another heavy one that weighs heavy on you, because going through a divorce, you know how that affects kids. A lot of times kids think that they are the problem when they're not. They think that they caused the divorce, especially if they're younger. They don't know what's going on and the implications that it can play on them into their adulthood. So that can be something that some people even stick around in marriages because they're doing it for the kids. But I don't think that that's a good reason to stay married, because if you are in a dysfunctional marriage, that's all the kids are going to see is dysfunction, which in turn they're going to think that this is normal, and you don't want that for your kids. I remember going through my divorce. I had to pay child support and alimony. I was just starting over. Had my own place. I had to start from ground zero. Uh, I didn't even have a car. Like, I had to start over because I had to make sure that my ex-wife had a car to get my daughter back and forth to school. So I had to literally start over from the ground up and pay child support and alimony just to make my life work. And I had to pay student loans while going through all this at one time. So that's a different story. I'll talk about that at another time. But yeah, going through a divorce can be very challenging, because child support and alimony will give you a reality check like nobody's business. But thank God that I was able to get through that. And my daughter, she came to live with us a year, possibly a year later, after going through my divorce, and she stayed with us for 2 years. So I was able to still recoup some of that time with her before she graduated, because I understood how important it was for her to see me operating on a regular basis. Now, remember, I want to end with this. Marriage isn't for everyone. It's everyone shouldn't get married. Like, marriage is not for the faint of heart. And I know it's like, well, you've been married, you've been divorced, so I'm gonna do it too. Yeah, but I got the war scars to prove that how much this stuff hurt, and going through getting to know somebody. And see, marriage is just a mirror. Marriage is a reflection of all your personal issues, all your hangups, because whoever you marry, they're going to look at you and call out your stuff, right? When you're single, you don't have any issues because nobody's going to call you out. It's just you. When you eat, everybody eat. When you drive, everybody drive. If you late, everybody late, right? It's just you. You don't have anything to worry about. You are perfect and flawless. But if you marry someone, um, you'll be surprised how many issues come to surface when you didn't know you had them when you were single. But hopefully, I hope this video was able to help someone. Make sure you share this video with a friend. If you're listening to this on audio, you can listen to all streaming platforms. When it comes to the podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button and share this with a friend. Leave a rating and review also on Apple Podcasts, or leave a comment below. Let me know your experience, whether if it was a divorce or marriage. I would love to hear from you. So you never know who you'll be able to help. This is Sean Heineman at It's Scary to Remarry, wanting you to love fearlessly. Take care, people.